All right, welcome to the daily market recap for Wednesday, August 13th. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the action today from the indexes, liquid leaders, industry ETFs, then end the video with long and short setups like we do every daily recap. So if you guys enjoy the video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And if you want my market takes throughout the trading day, along with a live stream at the market open, you can sign up for the Discord using the link below. Jumping into it, QQQ had a nice day today, finishing flat, but a little gap up at the open, new all-time highs. We've got a little bit of air to that 5-day moving average, and we've seen the rate of ascent start to pick up here, which is usually not what you want to see. I mean, obviously, if you're long and you're continuing to trade long, that's what you want to see. But when you get these acceleration moves, they tend to also accelerate to the other side. You can see how the daily ranges were very nice and tight and clean on the way up. We had the volatility and the pullback on Thursday and Friday, July 31st and August 1st, followed by a gap up and an acceleration to the upside. So great move over the last couple days, but we're extended going into PPI, another inflation metric getting reported tomorrow in the morning. So any kind of pullback would be completely justified. A little pullback retest of like the 10-day moving average in the gap zone, I would be fine with. S&P 500 up 0.3%, a little bit stronger than the NASDAQ today. Higher highs, higher lows, and kind of a doji close with some space to that 5-day moving average as well. The story today and the story yesterday was the growth stocks of the Russell 2000 or small slash mid cap stocks. Anything that's more rate sensitive is starting to really pick up here. So I hope PPI inflation doesn't come in super hot tomorrow because we're off to a great start on some small and mid cap names. But IWO, Russell 2000, just the growth stocks of the Russell 2000. Uh, Gap up today, closed at the high of the day, and actually closed at a new year-to-date high, which is also great to see. ARKK, we talked about this yesterday where we had this little resistance gap. I'll redraw it here. I've already taken it down. We had this little resistance gap, and I was hopeful that we would close above it first and then start to pull back, kind of building in a higher low ideally to the 20-day moving average as we build out this multi-week base here, and then we can accelerate to the upside after a couple weeks of digestion. And then IBIT, using this to track Bitcoin. Bitcoin made all-time highs right as I'm filming this after the market closed. You can see IBIT also made new highs, up 2.8% today. So NASDAQ, new all-time highs. S&P 500, new all-time highs. IBIT slash Bitcoin, new all-time highs. ARKK and IWO, new 52-week highs or year-to-date highs. Pretty great action across the board in the market. Now, we did have a little bit of weakness out of the leaders today. We'll sort this price percent change high to low and kind of go through it. Oops, there we go. So first off is Reddit with the green line breakout, which is a technical term from Dr. Wish that shows when a stock has made a new high, then fails to make a new high for another 3 months, and then eventually comes through that and makes an all-time high. Not a bullet, or sorry, not a bearish stance at all. Very good action here. Reddit is one of the few stocks that come to mind, along with like Celsius and ALAB, which we'll talk about in a second, which gapped up on earnings. And instead of seeing distribution right after the gap up, it gapped up and got accumulated aggressively. Very few stocks have done that, and that makes it a stock that you need to have on your radar. Um, Jumping into ALAB, similar action with a little bit more sideways action, not as strong as Reddit, but did gap up 29% on earnings on the 6th into new all-time highs. That was the green line breakout for this stock. Continues to rally. Great relative strength today, up 0.8%, while a lot of the growth stocks that I track had either red days or reversals. Still over the 5-day moving average and a little space to that 5-day and the gap zone. MP continues to act extremely well. We did have volatility around earnings those 2 days, but now we're starting to see price tighten up and respect that 5-day moving average on the low of the days, getting that supported. Not doing anything wrong and continues to be a leader in the market. NVIDIA, not doing anything wrong, just kind of chopping sideways. Really tight closes the last couple days. Not accelerating with the market, but not breaking down either. Bounced off that 10-day moving average, closed right at the 5-day. Palantir, a little bit of weakness, gapped up into new highs, sold off, and ended the day near the low of the day. Still over the 5-day moving average, still over the support gap, and we did that on lighter volume. So I more so expect this to kind of gap up and put an ignite candle in here versus falling apart at this point. But we will take it a day at a time. Roblox, this was looking pretty ugly, kind of midway through the day today. We've already had the kind of sell off post earnings, a lot of profit taking, rally, lower high into the resistance gap. And then today we fell through the 5 and the 10-day moving averages. At one point, we were under the 20 and the support gap, but by the end of the day, we bounced through that area. So now that's a spot to watch tomorrow for like a higher low in the pullback. That support gap zone right at 125 and the 20-day EMA as well. GEV, similar kind of weakness today. It has kind of felt like the AI energy plays have just felt weak lately. Just trading sideways or some pullbacks. LEU is under the 50-day moving average now. SMR has given up a majority of its move lately, and just hasn't really felt like there's been momentum in that group the last couple of weeks. And in the last couple of weeks, it seems like everyone is like, well, you have to own a bunch of energy stocks because AI needs energy. And that's logical and was probably priced in with this 100% plus move in many of the names in that theme. So it didn't surprise me that we had some weakness here. The volume that came in was pretty aggressive, but we still closed over the 20-day moving average, the HVC, the closing value of the earnings gap up, and the 20-day moving average. So we'll see if we follow through to the downside there, and then we can replace this with a couple other names, or if this was just the wick like we've seen a couple times at that 20-day moving average and support gap zone before it rips higher. DoorDash, also kind of weak today. We closed under a support gap, closed under the 10-day moving average on volume. Did bounce off the 20-day moving average, but after that earnings gap up that's been sold off, kind of feels weak. Might replace this in a little bit. And then Robinhood, one of the leading stocks in the market that I've been saying is the leading stock in the market, had a bad day today. I got stopped out of my later position here as it fell through the 10-day moving average. One of the stocks that we'll cover in the watch list on the long side, just because I got stopped out doesn't mean I'm not interested in buying it on the 20-day moving average in that support gap. But not ideal that like the three lead like true market leaders in my mind is Robinhood, Nvidia, and Palantir. Robinhood had a bad day today on volume, losing the 5 and the 10-day moving averages. Nvidia's not really participating as the indexes are rallying higher, which is fine. It's not breaking down, but it's not participating. And then Palantir today had a small reversal. Those are the three that like I really key in on. And they're all a little red today while the indexes were green. Next, we can jump into the industry ETFs, and this is where we really see like where money is rotating within the market, and it's very clear. And this is why I like to go through an industry ETF list each day because it gives you a sense of what's actually working in the market and where money is rotating to. Home builders, Chinese stocks, biotech, retail, anything that's rate sensitive is continuing to break out on massive volume. ITB, Home Builders ETF. Look at these blue skyscrapers as this theme gets accumulated off the low. This was the weakest theme in the market for multiple months. Was didn't get over the 50-day moving average finally until June 23rd, while the market was already ripping higher and higher and higher. But since that point, we've kind of felt the sense that interest rates were going to start to drop. And people are betting that that's going to happen because you see tons of volume come in here. These big accumulation bars, pull back on lighter volume, big accumulation bar, higher low, big accumulation bars, tight action as it consolidates. And today with another extension here. So at this point, like it is a little extended in the short term, but a theme that I would want to be focusing on the next pullback. KWEB, Chinese internet. I've been pounding the table every single video that this is the best base. If we go to a weekly chart, 3.5 years trading sideways, tightening up after a big shakeout, breaking out on volume that Nvidia can sell chips to China. Another pullback to shake out like the late buyers in that move, tightened up, and then getting going here. Up another 3.6%. Um, I and we're not even like through the high of the base. So I think this is a theme that has tons of legs to it, and I don't want to be too quick to take profits from any of the Chinese stocks that I own. XBI Biotech ETF. I bought LabU yesterday for the leverage as it came through the 10, the 20-day moving average in this like 3-day pivot. Awesome consolidation into the 50-day moving average, into the support gap zone area. And then we pump through the pivot, then we gap up, get through the 200-day moving average and the previous resistance around here. So now we have very little resistance up until $94. As long as PPI doesn't come in super hot, I think this is going to have some clean linear moves to the upside. A couple other themes to go over. Cybersecurity got really sour on this as it lost the 50-day, put in another lower high, and started to accelerate to the downside. But a couple days start to clean this up. We got through the 5 and the 10-day moving averages yesterday, pushed to the 20-day. Ideally, we get a little rally into the 50-day, then a pullback, a higher low, and then we can start to get going on the right side of this base. Same with software IGV. Tried to get going today, gapped up at the open, closed basically flat back at the 5-day moving average. Now you've got like a clean downtrend line to work with. If we can get through today's high, this group can come back into favor. And when you have that going, it's usually a good group for growth stocks. And then NLR, nuclear and uranium theme, weakest group today. Um, Down 2%, but still at the 20-day moving average, just kind of wicked under there, closed right at that area. But definitely some weakness in the AI energy type plays. So makes sense to see weakness in that group. All right, let's jump to the long setups now. Got, what is it, 10 long setups, 9 short setups to cover. Long setups, Meta is the first. We'll sort this by average volume. So if you need a bunch of liquidity to trade, watch the first couple, then you could skip to the shorts. But Meta, we had this on Breakout Watch yesterday. Awesome action through the breakout. Now we're pulling back on lower volume, still above the 5-day moving average, not doing anything wrong. A 5-day EMA test, a HVC test would be buyable versus the 10-day. That's how I'm playing that one. Robinhood, we kind of covered this with the leaders list. I got stopped out, but we have the 20-day moving average and support gap zone. I have a rule where whenever a liquid leader is pulling back to a support gap that aligns with the 20-day moving average after making a new all-time high, it's a must-buy zone for me. So watching that 105.80 area for an undercut and reclaim of the support gap low as my entry stop would be either 2% or whatever the low of the day is before we get back through that zone. But it's been the market leader. If the market's going to continue to rally, that's going to be a nice low risk entry point. It seems like we just kind of punished some late buyers through here, and now hopefully we can just scoop that 20-day EMA and then get back in. APP, good breakout on earnings, gapped up the next day, which again, we haven't seen a lot of stocks following through on earnings. Till today, a little bit of weakness back into the 5-day moving average. Just looking for another retest of that 440 area, the HVC gap zone low. And if this happens over the next couple days, you could have that 10-day moving average catching up, which would be more ideal, but just kind of like a breakout retest watch. Shopify hasn't accelerated post earnings. We had that good move on earnings up 22%. And then we just went sideways, which is not a bad thing at all. It just means that we didn't get more aggressive accumulation there. But really tight trading action as we pull into the 5-day moving average. You don't see volume picking up or getting wild. You don't see a bunch of whippy high and low bars. It's just very tight action into the 5-day. consolidating after that earnings gap up. Now we're just looking through for a breakthrough today's high. Stop would be the low of the pullback on this one. Carvana, outside of Robinhood, probably the setup. There's a couple setups I'm pretty excited for. Carvana is one of them, though. We recently made new all-time highs on earnings. Since then, we've pulled back, bounced, pulled back again, tested the 50-day moving average, and now this stock is not extended, which is actually nice to see because we've been trading in a market that everything gets extended. You're trying to make moves off like the 5-day, off the 10-day, which depending on your personality could be a little bit tougher. But now we got an inside day on light volume. We tested the 50-day moving average and bounced there yesterday. We're just looking for a breakthrough today's high. Stop would be yesterday's low for this name. RGTI had earnings today. Let's see, yeah, had earnings. Sales reported $1.8 million of sales. Missed the estimate of 1.9 million, which is shockingly low for a stock of this market cap. But think about how high the stock can go if they make more than $2 million. And this zooming out is probably the best base that I've seen in a very, very long time. Reminds me of SMCI, reminds me of AMR. Um, what was the other one that it kind of reminds me of? I'm blanking on that now, but this stock had every reason to fail. Every reason to fail. The company earned $1.8 million. I know traders that are making more than $1.8 million a quarter. And instead of breaking down on that report, we had a little shakeout in the morning. Then we came through the pivot at 1640 and rallied into the resistance gap. Now we closed a little bit weak. But what I would be looking for on this is any morning weakness. If we can come back to that 1635 area, like that previous pivot, that would be buyable versus today's low and that 10-day moving average. Otherwise, like morning weakness and then a recapture of VWAP would be buyable versus whatever the low of tomorrow is. So definitely a speculative name, but we're in a speculative market and you don't get quality bases like this very often. So just because they don't make any money doesn't mean that they can't make you money. FUTU, leader in China. This, along with TME and a couple others, but really TME and FUTU are the main like Chinese stocks that I've been tracking. New 52-week highs today, not quite all-time highs, but we're getting there. This does have earnings coming up on August 20th, which is in about a week, getting to the point where it's a little too close to buy. But I'll be looking for a pullback just into the 10-day moving average as a potential buy point on this one. I just the the Chinese theme is has such a large base right now that I don't want to ignore the leaders that are right at highs. Like I think Chinese names, biotechs, and home builders are the groups to focus on if there's any pullbacks or weakness. Uh, W for Wayfair, we've already doubled off the low, actually tripled off the low, a little bit more, almost quadrupled off the low. Great strength on earnings, gapped up and closed up 12.5%. After a little pullback to the 10-day, we got going again. Now we're just looking for another pullback into HVC, the 10-day moving average, right around 73.60 as a potential buy point. Stop would be the low of the pullback. Next, we have SYM. This is definitely more of like a speculative play and not like just looking at it, you probably don't see a very clean setup. I don't think it's an A plus setup, but what I do like about this is it was a name that has made a massive move from 16 up to 63. Then we gapped down on earnings, and instead of following through the downside, we saw a quick undercut of a support gap and then accumulation the entire rest of the day, closing back over the 20-day. We rallied into the five, had a lower high, or sorry, a higher low pullback, and then a very strong close today. This kind of reminds me of the SoFi chart. Let me bring that up, where right around earnings, things got funky, but we kept getting support at that 20-day moving average. Then finally, we had one day where we just undercut the support gap in the 20-day, and that was the like best risk reward buy point right at 2102. And then from there, we've had a nice clean uptrend. So on a name that like has the ability to move very quickly, is not getting destroyed after earnings, after that earnings gap down. We're seeing accumulation in this. Now I'm just looking for a pullback into that 50-90 support gap zone, like a higher low pullback. And then my stop would be today's low on that. And then AEHR, this is a semiconductor name, very like relatively thin, only $27 million traded, so size it accordingly. But obviously has the ability to move from 6 up to 24, little pullback, shakeout of the 20-day moving average, bounce back, give you that little pivot. We pushed the pivot a little bit today. Now just checking back into that 19.5 area versus the 5-day moving average would be the buy point. Jumping to the shorts, first we'll go with OPEN. Uh, Now we're kind of flipping it where if we're looking for shorts, we want to see rallies into the resistance gap, pausing right at that area, and then we want to short the weakness. So with OPEN, this has already made a crazy move from 50 cents to 5. Then we have a lower high, another lower high. We've had 2 days here where we're tightening up and just like stopping at that resistance gap. Now you could play this on the long side just as easily as you could play it on the short side. What I would be looking for is if you're trying to go long, a gap up and take out of today's high would be buyable versus today's low. But we do have these two resistance gaps. Even while everything like home building stocks were ripping, anything that was rate sensitive was ripping. A lot of the like risky growth stocks were ripping higher. This wasn't. It was down 2.4%. So that's why it's on the short list for me. If we fall through today's low, that would be a short versus today's high. Joby, I think the same thing. You could go long or short this, long through today's high, short through today's low. Um, I still do have a couple shares short from this little. We rallied up after earnings, then lost the daily view app. So I'm short from 1860. I would cover if we gap up and take out today's high. That would be my stop in the money. But if we can break through today's low, then we're putting in a lower high, and hopefully we can actually get an accelerated move to the downside. BMNR, we've covered the. Actually, let me jump to SBET first. This is a stock that has already made an insane move from $2 to 120, fell all the way to 11, rallied up to 40, then fell to 17, rallied up into that resistance gap again, and now we're getting nice and tight. From contraction comes expansion. You pick the direction, go with the trend. You can play it on the long or the short side in this market. But because we already rallied up and rejected at the resistance gap, I think it's more likely that it goes to the downside. But you can say, Nick, this is an A plus long setup for my system, and I would be fine with that because the price action has been so tight where you can manage your risk in either way. You're just rolling the dice, and as long as you have really tight risk management, it's not going to hurt you much either way. And for a stock that has explosive moves in both directions, that gives you the asymmetrical risk reward that you want. Now, notice how when this made its like first low after the all-time high, it rallied up multiple 100% from like 9 to 40, and then into this resistance gap for about 3 days before it started its move lower. Now we're jumping to BMNR, very similar action from $4 up to 160, sold all the way back down to $30, then rallied up to 69. Not quite a 400% move or 300% move, but a 100% move right around that area. And now we've had 3 days just not getting over this resistance gap on a closing basis. So we've also seen volume peak on this lower high, which is not usually a good sign. SBET did the exact same thing. So now we're churning into a resistance gap while volume is massive, but we're not making any price progression. Typically, when that happens, that's a sign of a local top. So shorting through today's low stop would be. I would not do today's high. It's just like a little too wide for this name. I would be trying to short the breakthrough today's low, and then just use like a 2 or 3% stop on that. And then YT, this has been on the short low watch list forever. Another kind of inside day right at that 50-day moving average. Now we could short through today's low, losing the 5 and the 10-day moving average. We've got this stage 2 uptrend, the stage 3 top, and now we're looking to enter that stage 4 decline. HIMS, good lower wick today after taking out the lows. So short term, I actually think this probably bounces. But overall, I think this has churned enough traders up top here where you're going to have a lot of selling pressure if we rally up into that 50-day moving average. Don't think that'll happen in one day, but just putting it on our radar, a rally up into the 50-day moving average right around $53 would be potential short spot. ZEPP, pick up in volume today without real price progression. At one point, it was up like 12% today. Another name that's ran from $2 up to $38 at today's high. I believe this is gapping down after hours as well. Let's see. Yeah, gapping down a little bit, 33.28. So that's what I would be looking for. I'd be looking for a gap down, and then opening range break would be the entry. The stop would be today's closing price because I want to keep that gap off the high and keep all these people that tried to get in a little bit too late as we got that pickup in volume, trapped at higher prices, keeping that selling pressure to the downside. DFDV, awesome short today, right through the 50-day moving average and resistance gap. Hopefully, we get a little rally tomorrow, but chances are, I kind of think that this is done at this point because of the volume that came in, the highest volume ever on this name, and it came with again another lower high into a resistance gap, into a key moving average, and rejected right at that area. Fortunately, I did not take that trade, but we'll keep an eye out for just like a morning rally, then a loss of the daily VWAP to short versus depending on how close we get to that resistance gap, we could use the resistance gap high as our stop. Otherwise, just the high of the day. And then last one, ATNF. This is like purely a speculation play, but if you zoom out on the chart, you see like this stock does this all the time. It gaps up and then goes to zero, gaps up and goes to zero. So uh, if you adjust for all the reverse stock splits, this stock once traded at $5,000, again, adjusted for the stock splits, and now it's trading at $13. So it's just a continuous cycle of gap up, run for a little bit, get everyone suckered into the move, and then they just drop it, do an offering, then have to do a reverse split to stay within regulation. So just through today's low is a short. Position sizing would have to be way lower because, I mean, this does have the ability to make moves like 90 cents to $17. So you can't size it up too crazy. But definitely one that, I mean, if you just play it long term, this has been collapsing for a while now. So that's going to be the daily market recap and prep for August 13th. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want the daily live stream at Market Open, you can sign up for the Discord in the pinned comment below. Have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video.